China, India, the United States of America. The battle of the big boys. Welcome to the Travel Bible. In this video, we will compare the three most populated countries on Earth: China, India, and the US. We'll compare them by their demographics, geography, economies, infrastructure, and finally quality of life. Once you've watched the video, we will then ask you which one you'd live in, which one you'd visit, and which one you'd avoid. So sit back, relax, and we hope you learn something new. So let's begin by looking at the demographics of these three countries. Some of them are absolutely mind-boggling. We begin with arguably the most influential statistic when looking at these three countries: their population. China has a population of roughly 1.4 billion, followed just behind by India with 1.35 billion, and then the United States with 330 million. To put this in perspective, India, which is the second most populated country on Earth, has roughly 1 billion more people than the third most populated country, which of course is the US. If you were to randomly select one human being from the planet right now, there's a 36% chance that they will be from China or India. By 2027, India will have more people than China, with roughly 1.47 billion people. Currently, China's population growth rate is around 0.39%, while India's population is growing at about 0.99%. China crossed the 1 billion milestone in 1980, whereas India did in 1997. The population of China and India will peak in 2031 and 2059 respectively. Population is subjective, so it's hard to give a winner here. So instead, we'll look at population density. The lower here, the better. Population density shows how cramped or spread out inhabitants are. Cities or countries with high population densities can be considered overpopulated, which can be a problem if the infrastructure is underdeveloped. So China has around 145 people per kilometre squared, India 411, and the USA 37. So this is a clear win for the US, with India having by far the most dense population and then China sitting in between. Now let's look at the overall life expectancy for these three countries. So the US takes the win here with 80.1 years, followed by China with 75.8, and then in third place India at 69.1. However, for another mind-boggling fact, the life expectancy for someone in the US in 1960 was roughly 70 years. Astonishingly, in China in 1960, it was just 44 years. It's fair to say that China's quality of life has drastically improved over the last few decades. Now let's take a look at their geography. First, we'll look at the percentage of their landmass that are covered in forests. Forests have a key role in removing pollutants and cleansing the air, and are great habitats for incredible animals. So the US takes the win here with 33%, India follows up with 23%, and just behind China with 22%. Next, let's take a look at their total land area. This excludes inland and sea waters. To get a better idea of how large the country is, you can compare it with a soccer field, which has 0.007 kilometers squared. So China takes the win here with just over 9.3 million kilometers squared. Then just behind with 9.1 million is the US. And finally, with just under 3 million is India, giving the win here by a tiny margin to China. And finally, for geography, let's look at the percentage of land dedicated to agricultural use, including arable land, permanent crops, and permanent pasture. So India gets the first win here with 60.5%, then China with 54.7%, and then the US with 44.5%. Let's now move over to the economy of these three countries by starting off with their unemployment rates. The lower here, the better of course. So China takes the win here with 3.9%, followed by the US with 4.4%, and finally India with 8.5%. So a clear win here for China. Now let's take a look at the GDP per capita. The GDP per capita is calculated by dividing a total GDP by the number of people living in the country. A higher GDP per capita indicates a superior standard of living. By a country mile, the US wins this one with $62,600 per capita, followed by China with $19,500, and then India in third place with $8,500. Now this is quite a tricky one because China and India have such gigantic populations with a very large range in wealth. Some areas of China and India are extremely poor and stricken with poverty, whereas some areas contain some of the wealthiest people on Earth. China and India have the second and fourth most billionaires in the world, with 389 and 102 respectively. And finally, for economy, let's look at debt. This is a percentage of their GDP which is owed in national debt. The higher here, the worse it is. So China takes the easy win here with 47%, followed by India with 71%, and then the US with 79%. So China is clearly investing in the right places and looking to be as self-sustaining as possible. Now let's take a look at the infrastructure for these three countries. In my mind, there is one clear winner here, so let's have a look. First, we'll start with roadways, which is the total length of the country's paved and unpaved roads. With nearly 6.6 million kilometers squared, the US not only wins against China and India, but against all other countries too. Next is China with 4.8 million, and then just behind we have India with 4.7 million kilometers squared, so that was a close one. Now, hold on to your aeroplane seat for this one. Let's take a look at the total amount of airports these three countries have. Starting off with India in third place with 346. Then in second place China with 507. And then finally the US takes the win here with, are you ready? 13,513 airports. The presence and number of airports is a good indicator to see how accessible and how good travel is in the country. And to finish off with infrastructure, let's look at railway networks. So, to no surprise, the US wins this one with nearly 294,000 square kilometers of railway networks, the most out of every country in the world. Next is China with 131,000, although this is increasing rapidly. And then India with nearly 69,000 kilometers squared. And finally, let's finish off this battle by looking at the quality of life for these three countries. Of course, there are many different factors which determine the quality of living in a country, but for this video, we'll just choose three. The first one will make your jaw drop. Let's look at the percentage of the population that are classed as obese. The lower here, the better of course. So India wins this one with 3.9%, followed by China with 6.2%, and then, remarkably, the US with 36.2%, meaning that over a third of adults are classed as obese in the US. Now, let's take a look at the amount of physicians per 1,000 people in each of these three countries. So the US takes the win here with 2.59 per 1,000, India with 0.78, and then China roughly in the middle with 1.79. And finally, to end this video, let's look at the percentage of people that are below the poverty line in these three countries. So again, the lower here, the better. So incredibly, China wins this one with just 3.3%. Followed by the US with 15%, and then India in third place with 22%. So now it's your turn. Let us know in the comments section below which one you'd live in, which one you'd visit, and which one you'd avoid, and why. We can't wait to read your comments. And while you're there, let us know which cities or countries we should do next. So I would personally live in the US because it's very similar to the UK. I'd visit China because I find their country and technological advancements fascinating. And then I'd have to avoid India. However, saying that, I would still absolutely love to visit India, as their food, people and cultural identity are up there with some of the best in the world. If you enjoyed the video or learned something new, a like and a sub to the channel would be splendid. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.